Hello, Tadeo.
Nania.
I have some questions from our viewers.
All right.
Can you help us understand more clearly what is the difference between positive and negative beliefs?
Well, again, the basic definitions, mechanically speaking, is that positive energy integrates, builds, expands, supports toward the idea of unity, harmony, understanding, awareness. Negative energy is that which segregates, separates, compartmentalizes, disconnects, diminishes. Now again, these things can be used in a variety of ways because positive beliefs can be used negatively, negative beliefs can be used positively, or shall we say more precisely, limitations placed upon the consciousness are placed there through a negative mechanism of focusing and lessening your awareness so that you're only focused on physical reality, for example, and not the rest of your being. But the idea is that's a positive use, because without that use of the negative energy, the negative mechanism to focus you in physical reality, you couldn't have a physical reality experience because you would be caught up in the awareness of the rest of your being. Your focus would be too broad. So the idea, again, is we're talking about mechanical effects, in a sense, the use of energy, the use of vibrational patterns to achieve certain ends. But when you have the idea of negative energy, negative beliefs that are perpetuating themselves to the detriment of the individual, not to the individual's advantage, then you have a cycle of spiraling downward, self-reinforced experiences of negativity, of diminishment, of disconnection. And the positive reinforcing itself allows you to continue to expand, grow, let go of what doesn't work for you, replace it with something else. It gives you a choice. Whereas the idea of the negative energy doesn't so much allow you to be aware of choices you could be making. That would be the simplest definition, is it's all about the ability and the freedom to choose as opposed to a lack of awareness of your ability to do that.
So can certain emotions be classified as positive and negative emotions?
Yes and no. Again, the idea is that all emotions are simply results, reflections of positive or negative beliefs. And again, we're talking about the idea of a mechanism, of an energy state. We're not putting a value judgment on this, that this is good and this is bad. We're simply talking physics, energy states. So while the emotions themselves are not exactly positive and negative per se, they can be reflective of positive beliefs or negative beliefs in terms of their energetic structure.
Would you say that we perceive and associate negative energy with negative emotions and positive energy with positive emotions?
Generally, you do that. But again, as we have said, these things can be used in both directions. So the idea is that, as we say, when you come upon something that you recognize, that you observe is out of alignment with your truth, you might feel a rush of what is typically referred to as anger, and most people would say that's a negative emotion. But in fact, the natural anger is simply a rush of energetic alignment or misalignment or recognition thereof of misalignment or alignment that allows you to make a decision and proceed however it is you really prefer to. But if the idea of the rush of recognition of misalignment with a concept lasts for maybe more than about 15 seconds, then yes, it can be representative of the idea of negative judgments and belief systems and definitions that are perpetuating that particular experience of emotion longer than would actually be necessary to use a positive or apply a positive effect to the recognition that something is out of alignment with you. so that you can move forward in a more positive way through that recognition that might be temporarily experienced as, quote unquote, the use of negative energy.
So how does that connect with the idea of high vibrational states and low vibrational states?
Well, generally speaking, high vibrational states generally are associated with positive energy because they are integrative and therefore they build up and increase the frequency because it's more integrative and more expansive. Whereas the idea of the diminishment of frequency is usually associated with the negative belief because it is compartmentalizing, separating, segregating, disconnecting in its experience, and therefore that equates generally to a diminishment of frequency in terms of the kind of energy we're talking about.
So is the idea that if a person is actually coming from a negative psychological state and they feel a rush of excitement and things like that, but it's actually based on the idea of diminishment of another person,
then it's not excitement that they're experiencing, it's a rush of anxiety. In other words, This is what goes back to what we began this transmission with: honesty in self-evaluation, so that you can have greater discernment in recognizing the difference between true excitement and anxiety within yourself. Because you can disguise them with dishonesty, with an inability or an unwillingness to really look at the belief systems within you and the reasons for why you choose to do what it is you choose to do. This is why it's so important to not be afraid to really look deeply at your belief systems so that you don't confuse the idea of anxiety with excitement, and vice versa, confuse excitement for anxiety.
Right, so you can see that it really is a process of understanding these concepts and not necessarily just immediately thinking because you have a certain emotion, that's a positive, higher vibrational state. You need to understand why you're feeling what you're feeling.
Yes, it's not about what you call knee-jerk reactions, either in positive or negative direction, but a realization, a clear understanding of why you're having the emotional reactions and responses you are, by getting in touch with the belief systems behind them to make sure that you are honest and clear within your ability to discern the difference.
So what would you say is the purpose of negative energy and negative beliefs?
Well, I just gave you one example. Without the idea of the use of a negative mechanism to impose certain limitations of focus upon your consciousness, you wouldn't be able to have a physical reality experience. So it can be used for a variety of reasons. And also, of course, as a comparative or contrasting energy, because sometimes by attracting what you might call a negative scenario in your life, you have a better understanding or a clearer understanding by comparison of what might be a positive scenario in your life. So it's sort of the old saying of it's easier to see a candlelight when it's surrounded by darkness.
And emotions and energy can be used in positive and negative ways. And we always have to keep that in mind.
Yes.
So does it mean that if we're talking to you that we're moving in a positive direction?
Generally speaking. But again, it depends upon what you do with what you have gained from the conversation. It's not just about the connection. It's about what you do with the connection. Because you can listen to us all day long and then go off and misinterpret, misunderstand some of the things we have said, or simply choose to misapply or apply them in a negative way in your life. So again, remember, it's not about what happens, it's about what you do with what happens that makes the difference in how you experience your reality.
And along
generally speaking, people that are interacting with us, on general, will be expanding their consciousness and thus raising their frequency if they are willing to allow the conversation to be what it needs to be for them, in allowing it to serve them in a positive way. That is a general truth. But again, it doesn't prevent someone from using it however they wish. We just want to be clear about that.
Okay, that's great. And along the lines of discernment, how can a person tell if a channel is real, so to speak, and whether or not they're actually channeling the entity's identity or existence for real.
It's not about determining whether the entity or the channel is quote unquote real. As we have said before, it's about whether or not the information coming through that being works for you. Does it align with you in a way that allows you more freedom, more self-empowerment, more of what you prefer in your life? Or does it attempt to, shall we say, sow control or seed the ideas of control and you must do this and insistence on that? The idea, again, is does it expand you or does it diminish you in terms of how you apply that information? Please do remember, and this includes us as well, take what works for you and leave the rest behind. You get to determine what the information is for you and how valid or not valid it is for you. So it's not about whether the entity is real or accurate. It's about, does the information allow you to be using that information in a way that you prefer, or does it attempt to limit you in ways that you don't prefer?
Hello, Bashar.
And a you good day.
Hey, so I spoke to you in this way about 4 months ago.
Yes.
And I'm so grateful and honored to have so much Bashar in my life. So
we are grateful and honored to have all of you in our lives as well.
Yeah, so thank you. And I know your favorite T is brevity. So
Yeah.
I'll do a really quick recap.
Thank you.
I got diagnosed with AML, which is a really dangerous and aggressive blood cancer. Doctor said, hey, if you don't do aggressive chemo, you're going to die likely within 3 to 6 weeks. I still chose to be discharged. I did a detox, and then we spoke, and you had said, be open to all forms of healing and just
Yes.
kind of let your life guide you. And I just want to say that was really good advice, which I knew at the time, but it turned out to be really good advice. And yeah, I got through the whole experience in a really kind of flowing, effortless way.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. And so in December, we did a bone marrow biopsy, and it showed no detectable trace of leukemia at all whatsoever.
All right.
Testing. So that's awesome. And the real key for me with that was, I think, vitamin C. I think like high dose vitamin C was, I think, super effective.
Was your permission slip.
Right. And so my permission slip, and I don't know how general that is as well.
To some degree it is for many people. Part of the general consensus reality, not for everyone, but for many.
Yeah. And you had also discussed with me that these types of experiences often result in like a shift of focus.
Yes.
For people. And I was trying to think about, for me, because I feel like in a way, I mean, I loved my life before, and I'm going to go back in a very similar way. But at the same time, I think one thing that came out of this experience for me was throughout this whole process, I was making videos to tell my friends how I was doing and just inform people what was happening.
Yes.
And that's been an amazing experience, and I've loved it. And I didn't realize I liked making videos so much.
All right. Well, thank you for teaching yourself more about yourself through that experience.
Yeah. No, so thank you. And so I will definitely continue to do that. And I think I'm going to start a YouTube channel.
All right.
Upload those and like make more videos as I go.
All right. Up to you.
So thank you. And so I had some questions that kind of relate to this experience. I know you don't do health readings, so it won't be that. But specifically where you say all pain is resistance to the natural self.
Yes, in general.
So, okay, I'll give you an illustration, if you will. So say in a parallel reality, which I would perceive to be my past, I am best friends with Buddha, okay? Him and I are best friends, and we're walking down the street. We're about to go somewhere to get some food, not like in a lunch sense, but just sit, and then people would feed us, because that's how it worked back then. And he stubs his toe. He's like, Patrick, I stubbed my toe. And I'm like, Buddha, you got to let that stuff go, man. What are you resisting? Would that be good advice?
Not necessarily, because as we have also said, and as many people on your planet have said, sometimes there are just circumstances within physical reality that happen because you are in physical reality. Not that you can't gain some insight or lesson from it, but not everything is a 100% dire lesson. Sometimes it's just watch where you're stepping.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because I guess the point I'm trying to make is I understand if, say, you have a expectation something is going to happen and then it doesn't, and you resist that process, then there can be a lot of suffering because of that. Because you say, I don't want it to be a different way, and like I don't want that, and I'm resisting, and it's painful.
That's more what we are referring to when we say that pain is the result of resistance to the natural self, because you are not buying into, shall we say, or accepting your natural flow of how things unfold in your life, and not understanding that things are happening as they happen to give you opportunities to know more about yourself, to have more insight into your relationship and definitions of that circumstance.
Right. Okay. And so that I'm totally on board with. But then does this also then go into, for example, physical pain? So things that so things that I've noticed in my own life, like for example, with this whole cancer adventure that I was on, a lot of people, I think, experience a lot of pain in these types of processes. I had very little. I mean, almost none, I would say.
Yes.
And so then that would then also be kind of a reflection of that, right?
You didn't necessarily have a high degree of resistance to going through the experience because you were willing to be open to the idea that you would learn something that you needed to learn. And so you used it in a way that was, quote unquote, less resistant, therefore less painful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I have to say I really loved it. Like that might be a weird thing to say, but I really like, it really showed me a lot, and it was a very powerful experience because I felt like I got to stand in my power.
Yes.
You know, kind of decide my own path, and it just
that's the point.
Yeah, and it just fully worked out. I mean, like full on worked. So it was great. I loved it.
All right. Thank you.
And okay, so I have another example for you. So say you're my neighbor.
You mean me specifically?
You specifically. Yeah. But but you're a human, okay? But you specifically, because I like to talk to you. So you're my neighbor, and I see you in the hallway, and I'm like, oh, hey, Bashar, how's it going? And we go in the elevator, and then in the elevator, I'm like, so, COVID vaccine, are you going to get it? What do you think?
I can't comment on this at this time.
Okay. Well,
you are in mid-process. You are in mid-process. This is a health issue. And you know we cannot talk about that.
Okay. Well, can I just share some thoughts on it just from my perspective? And
you may share if you wish.
Okay. So this is how I feel about it. I feel, well, I have degrees in physics and math, so I love science. Okay.
Yes.
And I understand that there is a sort of social responsibility component where you say, I may not be in an age group where you're very much in danger, but you want to contribute to the idea of getting herd immunity for everybody. And so it's a public service. And you could also say that, well, I mean, I am at a little bit of risk of dying and maybe less risk of dying of the vaccine. So there's also a bit of a personal component there. But I also feel somewhat resistance to putting things in my body that I feel like don't have to be there. And I don't know exactly what's in it, what kind of toxins are in it. So yeah, I just feel like I see both sides of it. And I'm probably going to get it because I like to travel internationally and I think it'll be required, but I just wanted to get your take on it. So
I have no take on it, as I told you. Everyone must find their own path and be open to deciding for themselves what is the path of least resistance for them based on their own belief systems and what they believe works not only for them but in service to others. It's up to you to determine this. We cannot comment on it.
Right. Okay. Well, I will just say I certainly have the belief system that if I get it, which I will likely, I will not have any side effects, most likely.
Don't be insistent
to that idea.
Don't be insistent.
Exactly. Okay, this is so good. All right, I have another question. My mom and I actually talk about this a fair amount. So you have often talked about we're transitioning, the splitting prism, different parallel Earths, and so forth.
Yes.
And that not everybody that's here with us right now is going to come with us.
Correct.
At least the one I'm going to.
Correct. And you will not necessarily go to the one that they're going to.
Exactly. And so so we talk about this a lot. There are different theories about how this actually physically manifests. So do we just shift to an Earth where there's less people, or are there like major...
Not necessarily. It depends. There is a version of Earth with less people. But again, you will shift to the version that is representative of the vibrational state that you have created yourself to be. The idea, again, remember, is that there may be other versions of people there that are in the reality you're in now that are simply different versions. And therefore, it may not necessarily be that they have to be less populated, but they may be populated with the same amount of people, but different people who may look the same because they are another version of the people that you were used to in the previous reality, but they will not be the same people, and they will have different approaches and different attitudes and different perspectives that are more commensurate with that particular reality. So it's not a given that the population has to go down, but of course there are some versions of parallel realities where the population is not as high. So yes, that's possible, but again, you'll find that out as you shift.
I bet I will. Yeah, because I feel like there are people that are so away from my vibration, or like where I think I'm going to go.
Yes.
Like, I just like don't see how it's possible even for them to change.
But they don't in that sense. That's what I'm saying. Those people that would appear to be the same people who are different are already in that reality. They're not the same people.
Right.
Just because they look the same doesn't mean they are the same. It doesn't mean the old person changed. It means that you're dealing with a new person who happens to look like the other one.
Right.
Does that help?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And
yes.
Yeah, no, I thought I had so many questions, but now I can't think of anything else to ask. So I think that's it for me today.
Then that is perfect timing. Thank you for your synchronicity and have a wonderful day.
Bashar, thank you so much. I love you.
Our unconditional love to you as well. Good day.
Bye.